By the end of this video, you would have built your very first MS Access database, set up some tables, create forms, reports, and understand how to use various important and crucial functionalities of Access. Let's get in. MS Access is a database software, and it is one of the easiest and simplest database softwares to use. We can use that in many small businesses, office settings, or even for personal projects. Once you open Access, you can create a blank database or use one of the starter template database that Microsoft provides. You can also open any of the previously used databases if you have any in your computer. As this would be the very first time you would be using Access, we are going to create a blank database. But if you want, you can also click on the new, and here you can search for various built-in templates that might speed up the process of creating the database. So I'm going to select the blank database, and this is going to ask you to set up a name as well as where you want to save that database. We are going to just call this as our first DB and create it. It'll just go and sit in my default documents folder. As soon as you create the database, MS Access will put you into a table creation screen where you will be creating the first table. Now, before we make any tables, it's a good idea to understand what a database is from a theoretical perspective so that we are not confused when we are making the tables or understanding and using various database concepts. So I'm going to do a quick whiteboard here. And essentially, if you think of a database like this big box, MS Access offers one way for us to create this box, but there are other tools like SQL Server or cloud platforms or many other options like Oracle that can be used to create these boxes. A database is a place where you can keep your data. So think of it like this box can contain all my data. Now imagine you are running a really simple business, like you're running a chocolate shop. So you have some chocolate products and you have customers who will purchase these products. Now, for the purpose of managing this business, we would like to maintain all the data using this database. Each kind of data that we maintain is called one table. So we could think in a small chocolate business, there are three tables. One is customer table, the next one is product table, and the third one is an order table. We would begin the business by having some products, maybe milk bars, almond choco, etc. And we would also have some customers. Now the customer will either call in or visit our store and place the order. Whenever an order is placed, that would be added to the orders table. So database contains these tables. Now what is a table? In a really simple way, a table is like a range or a set of cells in Excel. If you've used Excel before, that makes sense. But essentially a table will have some rows and columns. So for example, this is how a table could look like. So here is a table. It has 3 rows and 5 columns. Each row contains one record and each column talks about one kind of information. Now this is all abstract, but imagine if you are maintaining a data for your products. So you might have a column about product ID, a column about product name, a column about the weight of the product and category of the product and price of the product, like that. And each row would be one product. So product 1, whatever its details, product 2, like that. We have, even though you may never have used a database previously, would have worked with many kinds of tables across our life in various situations. So this is what a table is, and a database is essentially a collection of tables, but Microsoft Access offers some additional features for maintaining the data and accessing it and using it easily. So not only we can use Access to set up these tables, but we could also create forms. A form is like a screen through which I can input the data into the database as well as see what is in the data. So for example, I can have an order form through which I can set up a chocolate order, or I can have a customer form through which I can add a new customer. Likewise, you could also have, for this I'm going to use a different color, a report. A report is basically like a printout or a screen page where we are understanding what happened in the business. So for example, I may want to look at a report of all our unshipped products. I can use the report for that. There is also a third concept called queries. Queries are nothing but questions that you're asking to your data to get the answers. Don't worry if all of this sounds confusing. By the end of the video, you would have understood all of these concepts clearly and easily with a practical example. Now let's jump back into Access so that we can set up our very first table. We are going to be creating a customer table and record some of our customer information there. Let's go. We are back in MS Access, and now let's create our very first table. This is for our customer information. The way we do this is we just add the data and Access will create the columns, and after that we define the structure of the data. There is also a different way of setting up the tables, but we'll talk about that in a minute. For now, let's start by adding our very first customer. As we are operating a chocolate business, we would like to sell the chocolates to the most famous people in the world. Our very first customer is none other than Willy Wonka. So I'll add the name of the customer, and then I'm going to add their age. Let's say Willy Wonka is 56 years and their gender is male. Where do they live? They live in USA, in the state of Ohio. And let's add their email address as well. And let's also specify what kind of loyalty program they're part of. We have different tiers in our business. For the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to type gold here. And finally, let's add their address. So if and when Willy Wonka orders some chocolates from us, we know where to ship them. Now that all the information is added, you can see that the information is there, but they're all called field 1, field 2, like that. I would like to give these fields proper names. So you can double click on the field and you can type the name. So for example, this would be customer name. Likewise, I'm going to type all the names here. Just as we have the titles for these columns, we can also tell MS Access what kind of data goes into each column. So if you select a specific column, you'll see that up top there is a table fields ribbon that gets activated, through which I can tell MS Access how I want this field to behave. So for example, customer name is a short text value. So the data type here is short text. Even though it says short text, you can really have 255 characters. So it's pretty long and good for names. But something like age is a number. As you type the data, Access would have defaulted these things for you. But if not, you can select the column and you can change the data type from these options here. Let's take a closer look at various options. We've got short and long text. Long text is perfect for something like shipping address or any notes about the customer that we would like to maintain, or their reviews and things like that. And large number, date time extended, currency, yes, no, and few other additional options like attachments, etc. This is perfect if I would like to add the customer photos in my database and maybe use those photos for some shipment labels or whatever. While this format of creating a table is great, it is also a bit tedious, especially if you are trying to make a big table with lots of fields and lots of things. So Access has different modes for creating table. We have got this view. This is called data sheet view, where you are creating the table as well as entering the data as you go. But underneath here at this corner, you'll see that there is another option called design view. In fact, here also we can see the views option from which we can switch the view. So if you see the view, we are right now in the data sheet view, but I can go to design view. So let's go to the design view so that we can carefully design this table a little bit more. So I'm going to click on this. At this point, Access should ask you to save this table before you can switch the view. I'm going to name this table as customers and OK. So now we are in the design view, and here you will have a different kind of a structure. Two columns, one is field name, the other one is data type, and optional description that you can add if you want to maintain some notes about what goes into each column, etc. So here you can add any number of fields and you can specify that. Now let's talk about the ID column. ID is a automatic column that MS Access adds, and it automatically numbers the rows. This is because a good practice whenever you are designing and working with databases and tables is every row should have some unique way of identifying that. These are called keys, and most of the time a table should have one key at least, and that would be by default called as primary key. Again, you don't really need to know all of these specifics, but it's a good idea to understand where these things will fit in. As many times we have really no idea how to define these things, Access adds these auto number. Essentially think of this like a unique number assigned to each customer. So customer number 1 will be 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. It automatically increments these numbers for you. So here I have got the ID and then a few other details. If you want, we can add more information here. For example, gender is a short text, whereas shipping address is a long text. So I'm going to change that. And if you want, you can also add some validation rules as part of the database setup. So you could say, for example, age has to be a number between, let's say, 0 to 100, or as we are really a business, we are selling to customers, we don't want to sell to kids or anything. Maybe it should be something like 10 to 100 or something like that. So whatever is the criteria, you can specify that. For example, to define a valid age grouping, we can select the age, and as you select it, you can see further down here, there is some additional properties that can be set. So here we have got a validation rule option that we can set to tell Access that, hey, I don't want people entering negative numbers or any number less than 10 or more than 100. So let's go ahead and add a validation rule here. Select the validation rule. These are really tiny here, by the way, but if you click on those 3 dots, that should basically pop up an expression builder. This is similar to writing Excel formulas in a way where you can kind of build a expression. Let's add the validation rule for both criteria, that is age has to be greater than 0 and less than 100. This is how we can do it. We can say greater than 0 and less than 100. And when you click OK, now that validation rule has been added to our data set, and we can kind of save this and go and add some data. Let's test this out. So I'm going to switch to the datasheet view. You can click on this button here, or you can go to the view datasheet view. It will ask you first save the table. I'm going to save it, and it will also give you a warning saying, do you want me to check this rule against the pre-existing data? Let's go ahead and do that anyway. And now this is fine. As Willy Wonka is already 56, he satisfies that. Now what if Willy Wonka is -3 years old? When I enter -3 and hit enter, 1 or more values prohibited by validation rule greater than 0 and less than 100 set for customer.age column. So it's going to give a warning message like this, which is helpful. You can also test it for 110. That is also not accepted. 56. Perfect. So this is how we can set up the table by adding various fields, telling the data types, as well as specifying the criteria, like what kind of data can go. You can add more complicated rules. For this, you can select any field and go to the table field area here and click on the validation options here, and you can tell Access what kind of validations you want to build. It will basically take you to the same expression builder area. You can add what validation rule it is and what message to show as well. For example, earlier that error message was kind of cryptic, so I could even add a message that says, please enter age between 0 and 100 and click OK. So now if I type, for example, -3, I'm going to get a more friendly message like, please enter age between 0 and 100. As I already have data in Excel, I just want to copy this data and paste it into Access rather than type all this information. So this is how you can do it. In the Excel, select all the rows where the data is, including the ID number. We are not going to paste the Willy Wonka's data because it's already there. So copy, Control C, go into Access, select this row, and then Control V to paste it. It's going to ask you, you're about to paste 40 records or whatever is the number. Yes, and all of this information is now added. Don't worry if the ID numbers are not sequential. This is because Access automatically generates the numbers and maintains them. We don't need to worry about that. But now all our famous customers are here. I'm going to expand this so we can see this. So for example, we have got Donald Trump, Gerald Fine, George Warrington, Abraham Lincoln, etc. If you're wondering what these names are, these are basically puns on database concepts. So now that all the information is here about our customers, let's go ahead and add some products as well so we could actually operate the business. So our customer table is now done. We can go into the create ribbon, and from here we can create another table for our product information. You can see that in the create ribbon, just as you can create tables, you can also build queries, forms, and reports. I'm going to explain how to do all of these things in the subsequent parts of the video. But for now, let's create a table. There are a few ways in which you can create the table. You can click on this table. You can also go into the design mode, which will basically take you into the design view for the table. Or if you want to make a SharePoint list, you can use that button. We are just going to use the table button here and set up another table. This is for our products. So our product would have the name of the product, for example, something like milk bars. And what is the category? It is a bars category product. What is the weight of this product? It is 20 pounds. And what is the stock on hand? For example, right now we have 2,320 units of this product. Those are the only 4 fields. Let's go ahead and define these names. Again, I find that double clicking on these field headers is a bit of pain. So I would like to go into the design view and let's give this a table a name, products. And here I'm just going to quickly name these things. So this is my product name, category, box weight, stock on hand. That's also a number. If you want, you can add some additional validation rules here, like the stock cannot be negative, weight cannot be negative, etc. I'm not really doing that for now. And if you want, you can even add a product image, for example, something like product image, and select this as a attachment and then bring the product image file from your computer. Right now I don't really have any images, but if I have some, this is how we can use that. So for now I'm just gonna delete that. We don't need that. And the ID column is automatically added by Access. So here our product table is also ready. Let's go back to the datasheet view. We'll save this. Let's go ahead and add a few more products. Feel free to type them, but I do have some data. Again, the data is linked in the video description below. Here I have got the data in Excel. I'm just going to copy all of these rows. Control C to copy. Select this entire row, Control V to paste, and that would have pasted all of these products. So now we have got customers and products, but we are not doing any business. In order to do the business, you need some orders. So let's take some chocolate orders. So for this, we also need one more table to hold the order information. Again, we are going to go into create and this time use the table design button to create the table. The first field would be order ID, and this can be basically an auto number that we auto generate as we receive new orders. And we will also have for each order who is the customer and what is the product they're ordering. Now here is an important concept about databases. We have right now 2 tables. One is a customer table and other is the product table. Anytime we receive an order, it has to come from one of the customers and it has to be for one of the products that we sell. That means this order table has a relationship to the customer table as well as the product table. Relationship is a technical way of saying I can only take orders if the customer is already with us. Otherwise, we can't take the orders. We must first create the customer as well. Same goes for the product. We can't sell a product that we don't have. So any order that we have, apart from the order ID, it will also have a customer ID. So imagine this is our order table. We have got order ID column. This I'm just going to call is I. And then we have got CI. Customer ID CI has to be one of the customers that we have. Same with product ID. PI has to be one of the products that we have. So any order that we receive, it has to belong to these 2 tables. So this is where that relationship is. So when you are setting up an order table, it is kind of like a slightly different table. It has a dependency on these 2 tables. And we can tell Access that that is the case so that it automatically figures out the connections and sets everything up nicely so that you always take orders for the products that you have and for the customers that you have. So we'll set it up now. So here we have got order ID and then we also have a customer ID. This is also a number, and product ID. That is also a number because the original things are numbers. So we just set it up like that. And then we want to know what date we received this order. So it will be order date, and thus would be of a type date and time. Order quantity, how many boxes of that particular product of chocolate they have ordered. This would be something like another number. And how much money they have paid for that particular one. This can be another number. It can be a number. It can also be a currency. I'm going to pick currency for this. And finally, we want to know whether this order is delivered or not. So we'll have a delivered question mark, and this is basically yes or no kind of a thing. For this, Access has a special field called yes no, so we set it up like that. So this is how the order table can look like. It has all of this information, and we are gonna select this, right click, and then say this is the primary key, which means it is automatically incremented and it is the unique way of identifying this table. So we will flag that. Previously we didn't have to do that because when you create the table from the datasheet view, Access automatically sets up the primary key for us. So now that this is set up, let's go into the datasheet view so we could add some orders. So here I'm going to go into datasheet view. It will ask you save the table. Yes. And this is my orders table. Now, before we could even add a single order, we must first tell Access that the customer ID here is linked to the customer table, as well as product ID here is linked to the product table. To do that, we need to set up a relationship. So here, if you go into the table ribbon, you will find the relationships button. So let's go ahead and add that relationship. This is going to create a brand new screen where we can build the relationship. All the tables that you have are listed here. So we have got customer, order, and products. So what we are going to do is drag customers here, drag orders here, and drag products here. So all the tables are listed like this. Basically, each table is like a box, and all the fields of the table are shown inside the box. I'm going to just expand these out, and then you can create a relationship. There are a few ways to do this. For example, you can click on edit relationships and do it like that. But the easiest way to do this is essentially this customer ID here is that ID there. So I'm going to select this, drag and drop it onto the ID there. So here we are telling the ID column here is the customer ID column there. So from customers table, the related table is this. And you can also check this box, enforce referential integrity. What it really means is, that means you can't accept orders from the customers that don't exist. So that's what the referential integrity really means. It's a technical way of saying, because this table and that table are referring to each other, if one table doesn't have the value, then other table cannot hold that value. So if you want, we'll enable that and create this. Now I'm going to get a message error saying the database engine could not log the orders table because it is already used by another program or person. So we'll cancel that out. This is happening because this screen is open. So I'm going to close this and close all of these other things so we can just focus on the relationship. And let's try again. Once again, click on customer ID and drop it on the ID here, enforce this and create. So now the relationship is created. It will also show you who is the owner of this information. So the owner is customer, so that will have one side, and the other side would have infinity or many side, because one customer can have multiple orders. Let's do it for products as well. Product ID goes into the ID column here, and again we will enforce the referential integrity for that and add it. So this is our simple database setup where 3 tables and they're all linked to each other through the orders table. And now we can add orders, and we will only be able to add an order if that customer is existing with us. So now let's close away these relationships, save this, and double click on the orders, and we can add an order here. You'll also see that for the delivered column, it now has a checkbox because it's an yes/no field. It'll have the delivered check or uncheck. So let's add an order. Let's take an order from the great Willy Wonka. I'm just gonna see what their number is. There are 8 here, and in the products, let's say Willy Wonka ordered a bar, like milk bars product. So that means the ID here is 4, and in the customers the ID is 8. So we're going to go into the orders, and 8, customer 8, order product ID 4, and the date is here. You can type the date or you can select the calendar. I'm gonna select 8th of July 2025, and they ordered 10 boxes, and they paid $200 for that. We are yet to deliver that. Let's go ahead and add one more order, and this time let's get the order from Joe Biden, 55 customer number, and that is for Eclairs 30. So 55, 30, and this order is received on 10th of July 2025. This is for 20 boxes and they have paid $350. And this is delivered, so I'm going to check that. So like this, you can add some orders that basically give you a sense of the business, like whatever is happening in the business, you can record all of that. I've got a few more orders in Excel file, so I'm just going to copy paste them. Again, I have got the data here in the description of the video, so feel free to take that and use it. But make sure that the ID number columns are matching because of the way Access works. The auto numbering is slightly different for me. It might actually be 1 to 22 and 1 to 40 for you. So if the numbers change, you'll need to adjust them. But I'm just going to copy these and paste them here. So here are a few more orders. So you can see some of them are really big orders, but this is one way of adding the data. As you can see, while we are setting up the tables and adding some data, this way of maintaining information is a bit tedious. So Access also offers a more powerful and streamlined way to add data into database. This is called forms. So let's take a look at forms and set up an order form through which our people in the company can actually create an order without having to go into these tables and type the data. For that, we are going to close all of these open tables and go to the create, and here you will find forms options. There are many forms that we can create, so we're going to make 2 different forms so that you can familiarize yourself with the form creation process in Access. The first step to create the form is select the table against which you want to create the form. In this case, we would like to set up an order form through which our employees can type the order information and it goes and sits in the order table directly. So we'll need to select that table. If you have selected something else, click on the order and then click on the form button here to build an automatic form. So click that. Bingo, our form is already built. You can see that it defaults to the very first record in the data. So in this case, it has Willy Wonka and the product they have ordered, the date, quantity and amount, and we have not delivered, so it is unchecked here. And you can also see at the bottom a scroll kind of a thing through which you can browse all the orders. So right now we have got 22 orders, so all of them are shown here, and I can go like this. I can click on the last record button to jump to the last record, or I can click on this button to add a new blank record. So we could use that to introduce an order. But before we do that, let's improve this form. This form, while it works, it has some problems. For example, here we are expected to remember the customer ID and product ID. Many times we don't know that because we've got lots of customers and products. So wouldn't it be cool if I can actually select the customer from here? So it will show a drop down from which I can pick one of our existing customers using the name. Same goes for product, and then build the form. So we are going to edit this form. For this, from the default layout view, here we have got the layout view. We are going to go into the design view of the form where we are going to design this form. So if you design, then it will kind of change the layout and it will give you a grid-like structure through which you can actually customize the form. There is a lot more to Access forms than what I'm showing, but this is basically a gateway. So here we have got the customer ID field, and what we want is, rather than a single field like this, we would like to be able to kind of filter down and then see all our customers and pick one of them. So right click on this and you can use the change to change it to a combo box. So that kind of a thing is called combo box, where you have got various options. It is similar to data validation lists in Excel. So here we call this as combo box, and we are going to set that to a combo box. You'll see that now this would have a little drop down next to it. It still wouldn't really work. We'll need to now tell Access where to get the data for this combo box. So while keeping this selected, in the property sheet area here, we want to tell Access where our data should come from. So we're gonna set this and go into the data tab for the customer ID. This is important. We select this and go to the data tab. So in the data tab, we have got row source. The row source for this combo box is currently empty. We can tell Access where the rows should come from. So you're gonna click on these 3 dots and this will let you build a query. Don't worry about this for now. We are going to build it, but much later I'm going to explain what a query is. So think of query is like asking database a question. So in this case, the question that I want to ask is, show me all the customer IDs and names. That's the question. So for this, the question must come from the customers table. So we're going to take the customers table and drop it into this area here in the query builder, and then come here, and in the first field we are going to select ID, and in the second field we are going to select name. Make sure that the show is checked. By default it would be checked as soon as you pick a field. So this is one way of saying I want to select the ID and name column from my customer field and then show that in that combo box. This is it. At this point you can close the query. You can see this close button, close it. And do you want to save the changes made to the SQL statement and update the property? Yes. So we save that. This is gonna essentially write an SQL command here. If you have ever used SQL before, you already know what is happening, but if not, this is basically giving you a preview of what is happening behind the scenes. So it's selecting all the customers and just showing their name and IDs for us. Now we want to next tell Access that this combo box should not just show the ID, it should show both name and ID columns. So from here we are going to go into format ribbon, format tab of the properties, and where there is column count, it only shows one column. So we're going to change this to 2 columns. This is it. Now that this is all set up, let's view the form. I'm going to go into the layout view, and if you see, I'm going to go into the form view so that we can actually see the form, and you'll see that there is a combo box, and when I select, I can see my customer names here. Neatly all the names will show up, and I can select any one. For example, let's add a new order. I'm going to go into all the way to the end, and this new order comes from Bill Clinton, and we are going to need to type a product number here. I'm going to type 28, and this order date, as order date is a date field, it automatically shows up with this calendar thing. Let's get this order tomorrow for 200 boxes for $1,920. Not yet delivered that. So once you type all the information, if you hit tab a few times, this will basically move to the new record, and this record is now added to the table. You can double check this. If you go into the orders table, here is our recent order that we just added for 200 units, 1,920. So this is how the forms can be set up. Let's go ahead and modify the order form a bit more. Just as we have got customer ID to do the lookup, we will also do that for the product ID as well. So for this, again, we are going to go into the design view of the form. Click on the design view here, or you can go into view, design view, and from here product ID. Again, we are going to do the same thing. This should actually be a combo box. So we're going to right click on this, change to combo box. And now that it is changed, we are going to go into the data area for that combo box, row source, and click on these 3 dots. This time we are going to get the rows for this combo box from the products table. So we'll add the products table here, and we want ID and product name. This is it. Those two are checked. We are going to close this and click yes. Now that query is fed in here, and let's set this to 2 columns as well, and we have that set up. So now if I go into the form view, I'll be able to not only see my customer names but also our product names. So no more guessing what product it is, what customer it is. We always make the correct data entry. So this is how we can create a simple form. Forms are amazing, and they save a lot of time because you no longer have to go into the table and type the data. You use the form to type it. Let's conclude the form segment with one additional advanced form. Let's say we want to add a customer and orders in one go. That means a new customer walks into our store, they want to purchase some product. So we would like to set them up as well as finish their first order, everything in one go. So this kind of a thing can be a customer form, but first we need to save our order form. So I'm gonna close this form. It'll ask you, do you want to save it? Yes. And we will be calling this as order form. So now in the left hand side area here, you will see that we have not just tables but also some forms. Later on, by the end we finish, we will also have reports and queries too. So we have got an order form. Let's create one more form. This would be a customer entry form. So for this, we are going to select the customer table and click on form. And as customer table is linked to the order table, remember the relationship that we did a while ago, it automatically sets up everything. We don't have to do anything. You can see that when you are adding a customer, not only the customer information is here, but even the order information is right there. So everything is in one place. So it's super simple for us. So using this, this kind of a thing is where you have got kind of like a nested thing. Customer information is up top and all the orders for them is underneath. So we could use this to not only add new customers, but also see which orders are placed by which customer. So for example, if I'm browsing through this, Donald Trump here, our second customer, they have placed 2 orders. So we have got order ID 3 and 4 for different products. One of them is delivered, the other one is not. And I can actually browse through this and see which customers had which orders. So this is super helpful. If we are delivering, we can also flag this from here directly, or you can go to the end and you can add a new customer there directly. When you're adding the customer, you would also be able to add the orders directly here using this new button there at the bottom. So let's save this. I'm going to close this and say yes, and call this as customer form. And now we have got 2 forms. Customer form for directly adding a customer as well as updating their orders. Order form for adding just an order from an existing set of customers and products. So this is how you can use the forms. Forms, like I said, are amazing. They're powerful feature of Access that lets you build these kind of things. And once you have that, essentially you now have a business application. You no longer have to worry about the tables. The tables are in the back end. The forms take care of all the data entry and updation. And at the end of the business, you could always use the tables to ask business questions like how many orders we received or how many are not yet shipped, etc. So that brings us to the next segment, which is reports. Before we learn about reports, it's a good idea to first understand queries a bit more. So let's use the queries feature first in the create ribbon and build our very first query. Access offers multiple ways to write the queries. You can use SQL directly if you are familiar with SQL and write the query. But you can also use the query wizard, which is really simple and powerful tool to build queries that ask business questions. So let's say as a chocolate business owner, you would like to know how many orders are received in the last 10 days and how many are not delivered. So these are like simple business questions. So let's answer these things. So we could click on the query wizard. We'll select the order table directly and then click on the query wizard, and it will guide you through the process. There are different ways you can build the query. You can make a simple query. You can also use a cross tab query, which is like a pivot table in Excel, or you can use some of the built-in options like find duplicates, unmatched queries, etc. I'm just going to select simple and click OK. And this is gonna, because we have already pre-selected orders table, it's gonna show me, okay, here is your queries thing, table orders and all of these fields. What fields you want to see in the output? I would like to see all the information, so I'm gonna add everything. But if you don't want to see, for example, delivery status or amount paid, you can exclude that. So let's just stick to these 4 fields, not the amount paid and delivered, and let's go to the next one. So you want to see the details or the summary. Summary means I don't want to see all the individual orders. I want the orders to be totaled up by, for example, product ID or something like that, whereas detail would mean everything upfront. So let's select detail and then click next, and you can just save this query. What do you want to call it? Or you can modify this query. Now, so far in the process, we have not specified what dates the order should belong to, because we are not interested in all the orders. We are only interested in the orders placed in the last 10 days. So I'm going to go into modify query design option so that it can give me those additional things. So we are going to say modify, and the name for this is orders in last 10 days, and click on finish. So this is gonna give you further screen where you could kind of build some additional criteria. So here we can see that all the information is there, and what we want is essentially on the order date we would like to place some extra criteria. So here you have got criteria option, and I can use this field here to set up the criteria. This all looks a bit confusing for the very first few times you do it, but once you understand, it is really simple. So the criteria we want to say is the date of the order should be in the last 10 days. We're going to kind of do it in step-by-step fashion. For example, let's say we are not interested in the last 10 days. We are asking any orders received after 15th of June 2025. So in this case, we could kind of say greater than, and then between hashtags, we specify the date. So this is 15/6/2025 hash. So anything between those hashtags will be converted into a date format, and then it will just basically compare with that. So essentially we are saying order date here should be after that date. And then we're going to hit enter. I'm getting an error because I have an extra 0 here. That works, and it'll basically set up the date criteria for that. Now, how do we see this query? So here you have got run option. When you run that, you will see the results. So I'm going to run this, and here are all the orders. You can see the order date is after 15th of June 2025. So none of the orders are before that. If you want to compare this with all the orders, you can see all the orders here. We have got orders all over the place. So for example, here is an order that happened on 2nd of June 2025, 9th of June 2025. None of these orders would be in this subset. So orders in after that date this is how you do it. But we are not interested in this. We really want to narrow down this to a 10-day window from this point in time or today. So here I'm going to double click on this query and go into the design view once again. So where we are kind of saying that essentially what we want to ask is it after 10 days prior to today? So there is a function in Access to access today's date. It is the date function. So we are going to take out that everything between the hashtags and instead open a bracket and then say date, close brackets. So what date does is it gives you today's date. This is similar to Excel's today function, but we are not looking for orders that received after today. We want to know what happened in the last 10 days. So date minus 10 will basically take us back to the date 10 days ago, and then greater than that is roundabout way of saying I'm looking at orders that happened in the last 10 days. So we'll hit enter, and now that is set up. Let's run this, and we will see a much shorter list of orders that happened in the last 10 days. So now that this is set up, I can save this query. In fact, the query is already saved here in the queries area of my report, my Access. So every day I come in, I can double click on that and I can see all the orders that happened in the last 10 days. It could be 10 days, it could be 20 days, whatever is the requirement. You can set it up like that. So as you can see, creating queries is a powerful and another useful way to talk to your data, look at all the useful information. Let's write one more query. So here I have got all my customers information. Let's say I want to look at all the customers who are in Ohio or Michigan. So OH or MI is what we are interested in, those two states. So for this, again, we are going to select the customers table, create, and create a query. This time I'm not going to use the wizard. I'm directly going to use the design view. So click on that and select the customers table and put that here. Let's say in this query, we don't want to see all the fields. We want to see the name, age, gender, country, state, and email address. That's all we want to see. So we will select the fields like that. We can select customer's name, customer age. This is one way of selecting. You can also kind of drag and drop the fields into this area, but I find this is much faster. So we're going to select all of these fields. Now we don't want to see all the customers. We are interested only in the customers of Ohio or Michigan. So in the criteria area for the state, these fields here, we want to set this up as OH or MI. So just type those values, and when you type and tab, it'll automatically put the double quotes around it, because it says I'm looking for customers who are in OH or MI. So when you write it in multiple rows, it will automatically check them either this or that. The next thing is that query, whatever it is, it should sort the customers in the alphabetical order. So we are going to sort the name column in ascending order. All good. So now let's run this, and here are all our Ohio and Michigan customers and their information. So for example, we have got George Batch, Salman Commit, and Willie Onka, and of course Richard Nulkson and AR Rollman. So this is a powerful way to do this, and let's go to design view and click on this X button to save this query as well. We want to save yes, and the name, this is customers in OH and MI. Click OK, and now that query is saved. While queries are great for looking at individual information and ask questions and get answers, many times we don't want to look at things like that. We want to have a report that we could then give to another team member for doing their work. Maybe we want to give a report of all unfulfilled orders to our deliveries team so that they can ship the chocolates. So in this case, we can also use reports. So let's create a report for all our undelivered orders. For this, again, you can go into the create, and from here in the reports area, there are different kinds of reports. You can build a report, design the report, blank report, report wizard, and you can also print labels for printing shipping labels or whatever. So we're going to click the report, select the orders, and just click on the report, and that's going to create a report of all the orders. Now remember, we are not interested in all the orders. We are only interested in the orders that are not yet delivered. So the default report here, while it is good, it does include all the data. So one way of doing this is, you would first want to create a query that narrows down the data to just the undelivered orders, and then use that query to build the report. So for that, I'm just going to close this one out. We're going to save this anyway. I'll save this as all orders report, and that's going to add a new section to our access called all orders report. And now we are going to select the orders table once again, but this time first create a query for undelivered orders. So this is basically all the order information. It should also include the customer address as well. So here we are gonna put customers and orders tables onto the screen, and then it should also include the product, because our team needs to know what products to ship. So now that all the tables are here, let's build the query. In this query, what we want to see is which customer is getting which product that needs to be shipped. So here we want to have the order ID field, and then we would like to know what is the customer name, and then we want to know what is the product name. Order quantity, we don't need to know the amount on this report, because people who are shipping, they don't need to know the amount details, just the quantity is enough. And then customer's address and email information. So customer email, customer's shipping address. And we would also like to add a special condition. The order has to be not yet delivered, otherwise there is no need for that. So we will add one more field, which is order delivered ? We don't want to show this, so I'm going to uncheck this show option, but the criteria is no, because if it is not shipped only, then that's what we want to see. I'm going to just run this first to make sure that it is actually producing some results. So here are all the orders that are not yet shipped. Whatever is not shipped, we can kind of see this. This looks all right to me. So I'm going to go back to the design view and close this query using this X button and save this as undelivered orders. So now we have got a query here called undelivered orders. I'm going to select that and then create a report from that, so that this would have all the undelivered orders in a neat report format. So this is the report that we are now going to give to our team members so that they can actually go ahead and fulfill these orders. So we are going to save this one as undelivered orders report. And now this is here. I can double click on that and I can see all the undelivered orders here. I can hand over this report to my colleagues so that they can do the shipments. Every time they finish a shipment, they can come back here and they can look at the order form or the customer form. And for example, they finish shipping, they can just check this and you can see that now this is checked. If I close that, now that is saved. And if I come back here and refresh this, that order is now gone from this report. So this is how various components of Access works. I hope through this video you are able to understand how tables work, how to set up the relationships between tables, how to set up some criteria for what kind of data goes into which field of the table, how to create forms, how to set up reports, how to use queries, and how everything fits together. Let's talk about how to save this database and reopen it tomorrow. So I'm gonna go and click on Save button here. Now that is saved. Let's close that. It'll ask you, do you want to save everything? I'm just gonna click X, and then come tomorrow you can go back to Access and you will have your our first DB file here. You can just select that and it will open everything. You might get this kind of a security warning, especially if you're using forms and reports which involve some sort of active X controls and other stuff. You can enable that and now everything is here. You can look at undelivered orders and work on them. You can, for example, click on the customer form to add a new order for a customer. You can kind of go through various records and all of that. So I hope you enjoyed all of this. Thank you so much for watching this. If you've enjoyed this, give it a like and share it with some of your friends. And if you do have any other questions about MS Access, leave them in the comments below so that I can help you out. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you again somewhere else. Bye.